Shocking Harvard discovery on type 2 diabetes causes. A shocking piece of news has disrupted the lives of Americans. A study from Harvard, one of the most important universities in the world, says there is a clear and strong connection. The news made headlines in the New York Times, The Guardian, and on CNN. People need to be careful. Perhaps we need to change our habits. Eating meat frequently, 2 or 3 times a week, as recommended until a few years ago. What should we say? What should we do? Should we also completely stop eating meat? No, let's stop and understand together what the study says to learn how to adjust our habits for the better without disrupting our lives or creating unnecessary worries. The study was published a few months ago, in November 2023. It is a longitudinal study that followed more than 200,000 people for over 75 years. During this period, the researchers periodically asked participants to fill out questionnaires about their eating habits and performed complex statistical calculations. This strong relationship indicates that those who eat meat frequently, the highest consumers, have a 62% higher risk of developing diabetes compared to those who do not eat meat or eat it very little. But do you want to know what surprised me even more? Those who substitute fish for meat have an even higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Crazy, crazy. At this point, I already know where many people might go with this. No more meat. Let's eliminate meat because meat is bad. No, let's take it slow. This does not mean that red meat is bad, and we must absolutely eliminate it from our diet, because otherwise we will get diabetes. Instead, we can deduce that those who eat meat often, those who eat red meat every day, have a higher risk of developing diabetes. Processed red meat has a higher risk, like bacon, sausages, hamburgers, and hot dogs, but also classic red meat like beef and pork. However, to be honest and impartial, there are other researchers who have demonstrated the opposite. There is a systematic review of the literature from 2022, and other professionals and communicators have rightly pointed out that we should take it slow with this study because it is a prospective study based on questions asked of people, on filling out questionnaires, which can certainly vary and cannot be considered a double-blind, well-done study evaluating whether meat is a cause of diabetes. However, these very experienced Harvard researchers have anticipated this type of criticism and explain that, in fact, since diabetes develops over several years, it is impossible to conduct a randomized study of 2 to 4, 8, or even 10 weeks because obviously, in this type of study, no striking differences will emerge precisely because diabetes takes a long time to develop. Therefore, it is only through a prospective study conducted on many people over many years that a correlation between an event and its long-term causes can be found. There is another thing to say that is not trivial. The study analyzed is the Framingham study, the most important epidemiological study in the world and in the history of medicine. Just think that recently, in 1999, The Washington Post listed the 100 greatest changes of the 20th century in medicine. And while the discovery of antibiotics was first and vaccines were second, the Framingham study was fourth, highlighting how this study is truly one of the foundations of modern medicine. To conclude, let's analyze the last detail. The researchers also analyzed what happens if you substitute meat with chickpeas, beans, eggs, cheese, and fish. How does your risk of developing diabetes change? The conclusion was that if you substitute meat with legumes, cheeses, or eggs, your risk of diabetes decreases. But incredibly, to understand the reasons, I went to watch all the interviews with the study researchers. Even they were surprised because, in the diet of the centenarians of Okinawa, fish is an integral part of their habits. However, they hypothesized and confirmed through other studies that there is a difference between the fish eaten by Westerners in the United States and Europe and the fish eaten by Easterners. If in fact, in the United States, where the Framingham study was conducted, People mainly eat large fish full of mercury, heavy metals, and plastic, which can therefore be associated with an increased risk of diabetes and pancreatic dysfunction. When talking about the fish eaten in the Okinawa diet and in Eastern environments, we are mainly talking about bluefish, wild fish rich in omega-3, and in fact, even from the studies, those who eat it have a reduced risk of diabetes. To conclude, the study also discusses the possible biological explanations for this connection. And in fact, there are different ones. First, the same fat that deposits in the pancreas and liver and makes them function poorly. But there is also the fact that those who eat meat increase their levels of saturated fats and decrease their levels of polyunsaturated fats. And finally, red meat contains high levels of nitrites and nitrosamines, which are associated with endothelial dysfunction of the small arterioles. For these reasons, despite the common belief that diabetes was directly associated with the consumption of carbohydrates or sugars, it seems instead that this is not the case. High blood sugar levels are a symptom, but not the cause, and eating few complex carbohydrates is not the solution for diabetes, but only a way to address the problem. It's a bit like understanding with a simple comparison. The problem of smelly feet. To avoid the bad smell, do you spray perfume every day, or is the best choice to go to the cause and wash your feet? The same thing, therefore, can be done with diabetes, which, as we have seen in another video that you can find by clicking here, is mainly due to excess visceral fat. In fact, in people who lose weight, there is almost complete remission. Obviously, blood sugar is a parameter to monitor. Simple sugars must be eliminated, but it is certainly important to intervene on visceral fat rather than simply working on carbohydrates, which are an altered value but not the cause of the problem. I hope that this study and this video can help many people who suffer from diabetes or pre-diabetes to understand the causes and how to address them in the right way. But I invite you to comment below on your point of view and whether these new pieces of information will change your eating habits. Let us know about your practical experience regarding today's topic by writing it in the comments. And do not hesitate to ask questions. We will respond to the best of our ability. Do not forget to share your opinion with us and leave a comment. If you also leave a like, it would be great. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.